What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, look, a friend of mine we were just talking, man, and he was talking about how there's this new list that came out of like the worst females in cinema, and how Jenny from Forrest Gump was up there as far as the worst females. And I totally concur with that, because the more I watch Forrest Gump, the movie's now almost 30 years old. As hard as it is for me to believe, the movie's almost 30 years old. I remember when it came out in 1994, it was a surprise smash hit. It kept being number one for so many different weeks in a row. I think it grossed like almost $700 million, which was in 1994 dollars. So that'd be like what, 1.5 billion today or something. I don't know, 1.4 billion. But anyway, when I was younger, I think I first watched the movie in 1995. You know, back when HBO had their their HBO premiere Saturday night, when people used to actually stay home sometimes and couldn't wait for the HBO premiere movie and shit. But anyway, when I first watched the movie, man, I liked Jenny. I thought that, she was Forrest's friend. I thought Forrest was annoying her when I was younger. Like, I could kind of understand why he was annoying to her. You know, he was always overprotective and, always trying to be her bodyguard / boyfriend. She didn't seem to reciprocate the same feelings. And initially, then there was a period of time, definitely during the late 60s through the 70s, where she seemed to be really troubled. And she didn't really want much to do with Forrest. I remember one thing she always kept saying was, "You don't want to like somebody like me. I'm not a good person," and things like that. I guess she just had low self-esteem. She probably saw Forrest as this really good guy, and she felt kind of like shitty compared to his morals, his principles. But then, at the end of the movie, it was a fairy tale ending. Forrest got the girl, but then she disappeared for many years. And when I say got the girl, I mean got it. But then she disappeared. But then she reappears at the end. She seems to have her life together, except for she has this new disease that the doctors don't know what it is. Now, we all know what that disease is now. It was HIV, which probably developed into AIDS. And she says that the child is Forrest's. Right? Now, that's when I was younger. But through my 43-year-old jaded, trials and tribulations, reality, hard knock life, hardened, wizened eyes, I look at her differently now. I look at her as a person that unfortunately was fucked up in her head by her father. What I interpreted initially as physical abuse when I first watched the movie, now I realize it was a lot more insidious what the father was doing to her. And that was no fault of her own, obviously. That's the sick and perverse nature of the world that existed back then. That type of thing happened, I'm pretty sure, a lot. And it was fucked up. And it still happens too much. So that introduced her to I want to use another word, but I'm just not to say it. I'll put it like this. That introduced her to something that she shouldn't have had to dealt with until much later, to her teen years, when she was a kid. So she already learned then that men expect something from you when you're a female at a much too young age, right? So you can only imagine, even though the film don't depict it, she probably was doing things with guys from her preteen years onward. I mean, because we're talking about the 1950s and 60s Alabama, right? So then Jenny, she does a complete 180 on Forrest because now all of a sudden she don't want anything to do with him. She don't want him to be around her. You know, why do you keep trying to protect me, leave me alone after, you know, you spent the formative years of your life always wanting him around you because, you know, he, in your mind, protected you or kept you away from the monster of a father. Now all of a sudden he don't serve a purpose for you, so now you don't want him around anymore. You know, he's annoying to you. But you did this because you showed this mildly, you know, slim-witted man love. You know, Forrest was a little bit slow, but he was not what you would call, you can't use the R word anymore, but he wasn't slow-witted to the point where, you know, he didn't understand things. He understood things. He knew what love was. He knew what that concept was. But she used his intelligence or lack of intelligence as an excuse to not, you know, mess with him, fuck with him and shit, right? So she goes in pursuit of herself and her dreams and her goals and whatever the hell that poster meant, which really was just an excuse to get high, do all types of drugs, do all the type of freaky, disgusting things she wanted to do for the next 10 years or so of her life. And I think they met up again in Washington, D.C. Then, you know, Forrest witnesses her boyfriend at the time, who was a counterculture revolutionary type dude. Smack her in the face, slap the hell out of her too. Forrest does what he does, which is protect Jenny, beats the shit out of this guy, then she gets mad at Forrest. So he doesn't see her anymore, keeps writing the letters. She don't write his ass back. Then you know, she started noticing Forrest on the news after he gets out of Vietnam. And then Forrest all of a sudden starts having some fortuitous events, I guess I should say, happen in his life. You know, he was a ping pong champion for the Army, and then he gets into the shrimping business and makes a lot of money eventually. Before that, he was a minor celebrity. He wins the Congressional Medal of Honor, I believe. Then, ultimately, he invests in Apple computers. And by the late 1970s, Forrest is a multi-millionaire. Now, all of a sudden, she comes back, has sex with him, and then dips. And then later on, when Forrest is firmly established as one of the richest men in Alabama, now she comes back with this cockamamie story that's Forrest's kid. Which we don't know if that's true or not. How do we know that's the truth? The movie just says it's his kid, but we don't know if that's the truth. In reality, Forrest was a safe, at that point in time, when she knew she was sick and she didn't have long to live, Forrest was a safe caretaker for her because she knew that he was going to take care of her. So she died in a comfortable bed instead of on the streets or struggling, which she probably would have been at that time because she wouldn't be able to hold down a full-time job. And she gamed Forrest pretty good. She gamed him pretty good. That's how I look at it now. I think that she was not a good person, and she fucked over Forrest many times in that movie. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think.